Hello, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of the Auto Grade Podcast. My name is Daniel Lugo. I'm your host. And today I have the pleasure of having here as a guest Arky Jones. I think it's going to be a great podcast that we're going to have around. And Arky, can you please introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, Daniel. Thanks for having me on. I'm Arky Jones. I'm the founder of personalitypeak.com. I'm also the author of a number of books, including Applied Stoicism and Don't Give Two Shits. But fundamentally, I'm here just to have a conversation about being human and what it means to me to be human and how we can get the most out of this journey on this time we're on this earth.
No, that sounds great. And I think that we are here to help each other. And I think we're going to do great in this podcast. And I think you're going to bring a lot of insights. So I'm happy to get started. So I know in your bio, you are fascinated by how people respond differently to the same kind of pressures. Was there a specific moment or storm in your own life that made you stop and realize, I need to understand what makes people tick?
Yeah, it's very, very distinct. So I had my first child when I was 23 years old. And up until that point, I'd been leading quite a hedonistic life in that, like, you would get your money, you'd get paid, you'd go out, you get drunk, you would, seek short-term pleasures, short-term gain. You'd want to chase that dopamine cycle regularly. And when at this moment, so I was driving home, I used to work 7 hours away from home. So my wife gave me the call. I've been taken into hospital. I'm giving birth. I had like 4 Marlboro Lights left in this packet of cigarettes. And I was about halfway home and I was like, I don't want to smell when I get to the hospital. So threw them out the window and carried on the drive. And then I went into surgery, watched this baby be born, and the moment that the cry came, because my wife had a C-section, the moment the cry came, I can't fully describe it, but it's like a new pathway in my brain, a new neural pathway just formed, and it overrode everything up until that moment that I used to think was what life was. And my entire life in that moment became about, what can I do to make sure that this child has the best opportunity in life? And what I will say, it was more than just this one child. It was like, I want this child to have a successful future. So what world that within my capacity do I want to create for them? So basically, in that moment, my entire life changed. And that was when I was like, what caused that and how can I recreate that in other situations?
I'm so happy you said that because one of the arguments that is going on around the world is that the thing about abortion, right? But for you, it was a blessing. For you, you were trying to search for a life that wasn't yours. You're trying to look for dopamine, like you said. And when that baby was born, everything changed. And I think that happens to every single one of us. It doesn't have to be a baby, right? But we have that moment that life changes forever, forever. Like it,
Mm.
for me, it wasn't a baby, right? I'm 22. So that's why I raised my hand because it happened that you said 22. I was like, I'm 22. But, for me, it was surgeries that happened that changed my life forever. The way I thought, the way I expressed myself, the way I conducted to my family, to my friends. But I'm so glad that you realized that you had a different path, a new kind of living, because not only for you, it was for the baby as well. And a lot of people view personality tests as just fun internet quizzes or rigid boxes. How do you find personality in a way that turns it into a practical tool for growth rather than label?
Oh, no, Daniel, this is absolutely critical. So the whole journey was that you are not defined by anything other than what's here. So the question I asked myself was, when I developed this, it's been developed in development for about 8 years, and it came into reality about 18 months ago, where I managed to get the coding sorted, I managed to get the math sorted, because I've developed an entire method called the archetypical spectral model, which has its own scoring system. But the idea was to hold people a mirror, a snapshot in time, a moment, give them some insight. But at the same time, it is only that it is a snapshot in time. So before I answer your question, let me tell you this, and this is the way I see it. So let's say that when we look in the mirror and we do our hair, I mean, I wear this hat because my head's too shiny on the camera, but let's just pretend I've got a gorgeous head of hair. I groomed recently, so I shaved my beard, but you might groom your beard or, put moisturizer on the face and try and sort the out. But that you in the mirror, like, you might put eyeliner on, you might put lipstick on, you might put makeup on. Yeah. You then go out, you go for a run, you sweat, that might drip. But that's not the snapshot you saw of yourself in that mirror at that time when you put the makeup on or you did yourself. So all a personality does, all the personality test I want people to know is it will show you that moment that you take the test. And that is how it's being designed, that you can select exact percentages about how you feel at that time. But it is not designed to put you in a box, because I acknowledge that we are a different person. And this is how the whole philosophy was built. When you're with your mother, when you're with your partner, when you're with your friends, when you're alone, when the music stops, when you're with your kids, you're a different person. And that is what the spectrum of personality is. What I want to do is highlight the strengths you've got so you can work on them, show your shadows so you can be careful not to use your strengths to a disadvantage, and to show blind spots, because all of us have blind spots. And even though human beings are unique and wonderful and powerful beyond our imagination, we also do have patterns. And all I'm trying to do is I want to show people that pattern at the time they take the test, while acknowledging that is not them, that is them now.
I think that sounds great, but a question just came to my head. You mentioned that we need to use our strength, but my question is, shouldn't we also look at our weakness and try to work them out instead of just focusing on the strength?
No, no, sorry, I may have spoke too quickly. So it shows the blind spots as well. And the strengths can be weaknesses. The whole human experience is. Let me give you an example of this. Okay, I'll give you examples on both extremes. So let's go with the strength first. So let's say that you are an incredibly good organizer, and when you arrange an event, or when you're part of an event arranging, you might be able to see things your way, and you might be able to organize it incredibly effectively, incredibly quickly. But in doing so, let's say, for example, it's a wedding. In doing so, you may end up dominating the wedding's arrangements because you're such an efficient organizer, and you might feel frustration when other people like kind of dawdle and don't make decisions, whereas you are like A, B, C, D. But in that moment, in that extremely efficient organization, which to you is perfectly efficient, the bride may want to sit, they may want to question, they may want to look at options, they may not want the most efficient approach. And so therefore, sometimes that superpower can have a shadow, because it doesn't allow others to fulfill themselves, to live up to themselves. And then on the other side of it, so on the shadow side, sorry, on the blind spot side, on the weakness side, what we have to remember is a weakness to you, Daniel, is not the same as a weakness to me. And so what I would say that this test would show is that in your pattern, these are common things that are commonly overlooked, or you could do better on. And then it's up to you to make small steps towards rectifying them. And you can do that through, either you can monitor over time, you can work specifically on it. But the whole principle has been, if you take this and you follow the bits that you want to follow in a constructive way, will it make your life 1% better? And for a 5-minute test to make a life that lasts 96 years 1% better is already a win.
No, I think that's amazing. I think I got it wrong the first time I heard it, but it makes a lot of sense, because when you work a little bit on your weakness, it doesn't have to be a humongous. And like you said, your a weakness of mine may not be the same weakness as yours, so we are different. And your work heavily emphasizes on the repeated patterns that don't serve us. What is a common blind spot people discover about themselves once they actually look in the mirror of self awareness?
Well, one of the most interesting points that I like to make is that many human beings um, don't fully grasp. When I say sorry, they don't look hard enough into the questions on what makes you you. And so, for example, if we're born in South Africa, if we're born in Lebanon, if we're born in England, if we're born in Peru, there are things that shape us in that environment that shape our worldview. Then you can bring it back to the way your parents treated you, the way the teachers treated you, the way you were at school, the way you interact with your friends. Also, the environment, is the environment safe? Is it dirty? Can you go out at night? Can you not go out at night? Is there violence, no violence? So, all these things give us external clues as to the way that we should live our life. But a lot of people assume that is necessarily them. And so this is the point I'm trying to make, that we're almost told from birth that external validation, someone else has the answer, someone else has the key, someone else can give you what you need. And the way they do this in the modern world is they tell you, if you get this new car, you will be fulfilled. If you get this new the latest makeup, latest handbag, latest shoes, and they don't. What they don't do is what they, and by they I mean this kind of machine that we live in, is separate wants from needs. And so a lot of people don't know what they need as opposed to a want, and mix up the two. So a blind spot is because of the environment, that they can confuse something that they want with what they need. And what that can do is, a good example would be, let's say that you buy a car that gets you in debt, that is 60% of your annual wage or 100% of your annual wage, and you have to pay that back over 5 years. But you had a car before that was perfectly serviceable. What you've done is you've exchanged your future life, because money represents stored time, whether we like it or not, it does. We need it to survive. And so money represents stored time. In that moment, you've got something that you don't need, that you want, and then you've sacrificed life in the future to pay for that now. And so for me, that's probably one of the biggest blind spots, is seeking external validation for wants and confusing them as needs.
I think that's a great point, and you're right. We live in that world that material things are more important than everything else. But if you were talking to someone right now and they were asking, what are some practical tips that I can do to not fall on the material things and focus on what I need, what would you say to them?
Well, first of all, what I would say is that, once try and do a little test with yourself, and in interactions, be mindful. So be present. And actually, before I answer your question, Daniel, let me just say this. This is just a little bit of a bigger, just to put it into perspective, okay? So be bear with me, it'll be quick, guys, okay? But it sounds crazy at first, okay? Before the Big Bang, there was nothing but infinite potential. Some would call it God, but infinite potential existed before the Big Bang. After the Big Bang occurred, infinite potential was released. That was the beginning of time, of material time, the way that we can interpret it, and things more. And the very same way, a human life, the chance of you being born is astronomically low. It's like the chance of existing in is 1 in 1 trillion. Less than that, but you do exist, and you are born and you die, and life happens in between that. And then you have a series of moments of that life, and that dictates the direction of your life. Now, what I will caveat before I answer your question, Daniel, is that I do, and I'm sorry, there are some cases in this world where people are in bondage, they are in slavery, and when you do not have any agency at all, it's very difficult to apply this, and it is not fair, and I wish things could be done. But for most people that have agency, that do have freedom, that are able to make choices, and they're not under the influence of evil, then those choices do have impact on what happens next, and they can control what they do control. Now, this is where the answer comes. So, in any given moment, you can choose to do many, many things. And one of those things can be is, am I doing this for me or am I doing it for somebody else? Now, do not get me wrong. There is absolute merit in doing things for other people as long as it's on your terms and you're in control. So, for example, carrying the shopping for an older person to their car if you see them struggling. It is for them, but it's for you. And there is reward in that. It doesn't, not financial compensation. There is reward in that you feel good doing that. So nature is telling you that if you do work as part of a community, if you are part of a society, you do feel good. But let me give you a reverse example. And so you can, for example, let's say you're driving on the road and someone cuts you off in traffic and you give the finger and you rage. You've had an adrenaline spike. You've dumped your body and the sympathetic nervous system's been activated, and fundamentally you are no longer in charge. Your blood flow's been redirected from your brain into your muscles, and you're in this kind of fight or flight response. You are no longer in control at that point. You have given agency to someone else because of their actions. Their actions have led to you to give up control to them. The better thing to do is back off and maintain control, maintain agency over the self. So and basically taking sovereignty, taking responsibility, taking accountability for the self, controlling what you can control, but also understanding and letting go of things beyond your control is one small step you can take towards personal freedom. Because the truth is, life is not fair. Nobody's coming to save you. But if you can save yourself, if you can have faith in the very fact that you are here, then that in itself has value.
I think you mentioned something very important, and sometimes we give the power to others when they don't need it. Like the example you gave is a perfect one, and I think everybody that drives, and more here, I can say an example here in the U.S. We have a lot of highways and a lot of people cut off, so it is something that is very hard to do. But if we were able to accomplish that and fulfill ourselves into thinking, or not throwing the finger, or not being aggressive towards others, and just calming ourselves down, I think that is a great win for everybody. And I think it's something that everybody should practice, but I know it's hard. And I'm going to ask you another question. You often say that personality gives people the language for who they are, but Stoicism gives them the tools for how to live. How do these two concepts complement each other when someone is trying to rebuild their mindset?
Yeah. So just remember that personality is the universe's gift, God's gift, whatever you want to call it, for the way that we interface with the world, the way we see it. It's kind of a compilation of our experience and our direction, our thought, and our autonomy, our free will. And that what it does is it gives you an interface to the world. But the problem with personality, ego, self is, as I said earlier, that even though you could argue that your personality is not your soul, if we wanted to get really spiritual on it, okay? And the soul, the true self, is masked because of the life that you've lived. And so the personality is the best that you've got that you can interface with the world. So with that as a baseline, that the personality is your interface. And the beauty with hardware, so let's take a maybe not Windows, let's say Linux, but with each update, things change. It doesn't always get better, but things change. And our hardware is our personality. But we do need one thing that is absolutely critical. And if you go back from the dawn of humankind, we have always lived in societies. Now, the modern society is almost designed for madness because we're not used to this much input. We're not used to having access to 1 million people on social media. We're not used to this feedback, this constant chatter. It's not it goes against nature in many, many ways. But what is the common factor there? You can't control any of it. You can't control any of it. But what can you control? You can control your attention, and you can put your attention where you want it to be. And attention is the biggest commodity in the world. And what, when I say the machine, what advertisers, what companies, what they're not really being honest about is that if there is no money being exchanged, and this was in one of my books, Don't Give Two Shits. If there is no money being exchanged, you are the product. You are the test subject. You are being marketed to. And understanding that is one small way to fight back. Now, in terms of personality being the interface, Stoicism is one method how we can actually push that interface and give it a framework to operate within. Now, how I would say to do that is that Stoicism is very much, let's go back to the beginning. So Marcus Aurelius was a Roman emperor. He wrote Meditations. Now, he's not the father of Stoicism, but he did it very, very well. Marcus Aurelius could have followed a million Roman Empire and had all the hedonistic pleasure he wanted in the world at a whim, murdered at a whim, wars at a whim, pleasure at a whim. But he chose not to. He chose, in spite of all that power, to do what was best for his people. Another famous Stoic was a millionaire at the time, and his ship crashed with his life savings on it, lost everything, but he accepted it because he could not control the storm. And so, where Stoicism, this is one way Stoicism can help, is that if you can really, really separate what can I control and what can I not control, and then letting go of what you cannot control. Now, that doesn't mean you can control everything now. So this is where is a really good step for you. So let's say you've got dishes in the sink and the dishes are dirty. And it bothers you that dishes are dirty. Maybe it smells slightly when you walk past. Maybe your
I
partner.
hate dirty dishes.
Yeah. Maybe, yeah, you got it. You do the dishes. And so what I'm saying is that would be an act of doing. Another act of doing would be, let's say you've got a bill that you haven't opened. Open the bill, look at the bill, take responsibility, because you can. But let's say that there was a earthquake that destroyed destroyed part of your home. The only thing you can do is rebuild the home. You can't be angry at the earthquake, and it is far beyond your control. And it's the same with other people on a much simpler level. If someone insults you, humiliates you, makes you feel bad, that means that there has been some agency provided to them. And if you can just actually look at that and say, that's actually them who have done that, not me. All I can control is my responses. And one thing that I learned to do that has been incredibly healthy for me is using these principles of, okay, well, what can I do? Someone's just humiliated my wife while we were out drinking, and in a bad way. I can talk to them, I can correct the behavior, or I can walk away because it's my life, and anywhere in between is fine. Just remember this, that the world, it depending on where you live, but there is different seasons. And in each one of those seasons bring different things. And that's the same with human life. And if you can just accept that your life is part of seasons, but what you can do is what you can control, what steps you can take. If you take them to the fullest, you will live a life beyond what you can imagine. But if you allow other people to take that direction, you will never be you. You will always be serving somebody else.
And going that back into a point that you said, if someone talked bad about your wife or someone you love, and you speak back, you hit them, you gave them more power. If you step away, nothing, their comment didn't bother anything. So by talking to them and being aggressive to them, you're actually giving them more power. So try and focus on what you can do. For example, my surgeries, I can't do anything about them. There was nothing I could do that would prevent them. And I know that now. At the moment, I didn't, because when you're going through it, it's hard to look at them the whole picture. You are struggling, and that's the only thing you see. But now I can say that I couldn't do anything about it. What could I do? I could do well with my diet. I could do the exercise that I needed to in order to recover. I focus on the things that I could. And still today, there are things that I worry about that I have no control on, right? Even though I believe in God, I don't know if you do, but even though I think He has control of my life, I'm also in the step of thinking. But it's something that we should all work on. And I think it's an important point that you mentioned. So, working on the things that you actually can control is going to benefit your whole life completely. So, going to my next question, Stoicism teaches us to focus strictly on what we can control. When someone's in the middle of a massive life change, transition, or feels stuck like I did 4 years ago, how can they use personality insights to identify what is actually what they can control?
So it's firstly what you would get is, and again, when you're there's a famous saying, I didn't coin this phrase, okay, but when you're going through hell, keep going, because the alternative is catastrophic. Okay, and I think it was an Al Pacino speech where he in one of the movies where he says, "Claw out of hell 1 inch at a time." Step by step. So first of all, what I will say is to anyone who's going through that, I'm sorry that you're going through that, and if there was anything that I could do to make it better or the world, we'd do it. But often it's on you, and all you can do is keep moving forward. Because if you stay there and you stay in pain and you stay feeling sorry for yourself, no one's going to change that for you. It's not going to change the fact that you are suffering and it's hard. There is no true answer to it. But in that moment when you're there, the best thing you can do is keep going, and hopefully one day you will come out the other end. Now, where personality can actually help, where understand your personality can help, is what it would do is, again, it just shows you where you are at that moment. And personality, when you're in pain, when you're suffering, won't be the same personality when you're at your best. Now, of course, what I would say is that the first priority is listen to the doctors, listen to the surgeon, listen to the professionals. The test I designed is meant to be, it's for a fun insight only. So I just want to be clear on that. I'm not trying to it's meant to be a fun insight, but it does have some deep truths to it, but it's in no way a medical thing, just to be clear. Now, with that being said, we've established it's a fun thing. Having fun, what it can show you is it can show you the traits that you've got at that moment. And then it can make you think about, okay, well, what can I do about it? And then the other thing I've done is I've developed a technique called the third way. So, Daniel, even though you've mentioned Stoicism is one way that you can use to get out of that. But what I acknowledge is Stoicism's good, but it doesn't fully account for the full plethora, the full experience, because humans are diverse and our thoughts are diverse and the situations are diverse. So the second way is what I call the nature's way. But let me just summarize that even simpler. It's surrendering what you can surrender, letting go, and just living in that moment. It doesn't mean surrendering the fight. It means surrendering. It's similar to Stoicism in that you surrender, that you don't own what you cannot own. And then the third technique, so the third way is what I've called the peak method, which fits my site. And then ultimately it's an algorithm that ends with the K. I don't want to spoil it because there is a book on this on the site, but it ends in K, and it's keep or kill. And it basically gives you a framework, again, to either keep something that's working for you or kill it when it's not. And each one of these is designed to be, of course, the principles are the same, but it's designed to be different enough that each one adds value, and they're all in digestible chunks. Very soon, I mean, it's already on the site, but very soon, each of the archetypes. So in the quiz I've done, there's 64 potential archetypes that you can get. And within those archetypes, each one has its own best way to apply the third way. Now, in any day-to-day situation, though, the question that you've asked, it's a bit hard to answer from because there's so many different possibilities. But one thing that is central to all of it is how you respond to them.
Wow. I think it's- I think we were gonna talk about later your books and where the people can find them, but I think it's gonna be interesting for everyone to look out for them. So, for a young adult who feels completely misguided or confused about the direction of their life, what is the very first step they should take to build self mastery?
Okay, guys, remember this, okay? So earlier on, I discussed external validation. Earlier on, I discussed ownership, self. Everything in this world is set up to tell you you need something else. From birth, you are told to consume. You are told that you need this. You are told when you get there, you will be happy. You are told you always need to do something else. Even look at the system. You go to childcare, then you go to school, then you go to college, then you go to university, then you get a job, and then you work in a cubicle in front of a computer screen, and then you save up enough money for holidays now and again, and then you retire. And I'm not saying you don't have to do that because the way the system is set up is we need money to survive. And so I would be disingenuous to say that there is not virtue, there is not power, there is not strength, there is not honesty in a hard day's work, because there is. But the thing is, if you don't live in the present, if you are unhappy, if you are being told you need this to feel happy, you're never, ever, ever going to get there. So what you must do is, instead of, I mean, let me tell Daniel, you may have been through this before. Have you ever thought you needed something and you've sacrificed a lot to get it? You've saved up, you've done you've done all the things that you need to do, or even took a small loan, and then you've got it, and it didn't, after a day or two, it just felt normal. You didn't, there was never an end point.
I I cannot think of an example, but for sure, it feels like something that I've gone through before, and it happens every time.
Yeah, yeah. So you get it, and then it's like, okay, what's next? And that's the game. That's the way the game's been set up since birth. We're always told what's next, never to be satisfied. But the only thing that truly exists, the only thing is now, is this moment, this second, this heartbeat, this breath. The past is gone. It shapes us, but it's gone. And the future is not yet written. Only God, only the universe know. And this in itself is in accepting that. It means that you can make your moments count. And so, but you need to make it count towards something good. So I think it was it may have been Jordan Peterson. So I don't want to take credit for this, but it's not just him. It goes back to, it depends if you read like Hindu texts, if you read some Buddhism principles, it is across time. But if, let's say, for example, that you are in deep distress because you're in a job you hate, but you've got the golden handcuffs because you need to keep paying the mortgage, you need to keep feeding the kids, you need to keep paying the car, or young people are just trying to bloody survive because the system's been skewed so much that rent is now high, food is high, gas is high, that your salary is barely enough just to live, which didn't exist even 20 years ago. 20 years ago, the value proposition was you you work, 20 years old, you're qualified, you get a job, you buy it, you get married, you have kids, you buy a house. And and it's only 20 years ago. And even then it was hard because we'd gone through the financial crisis, which did cause my generation to suffer a lot. But the value proposition was still there. For younger people now, the value proposition's even changed because what was normal even 20, 25 years ago, um, which is go to work, work hard, get a house, have kids, and give focus your life on them. It's getting harder and harder and harder and harder. But what you can do right now, so that was me saying that, that wasn't the story I was about to tell you. But what you can do right now is, let's say, for example, you're in a job you really, really, really dislike, and it's causing the heart to sink, the tummy to twist, the feeling of dread to go into that building, but you need it. but you need it. Because if you don't need it, bloody leave. Do you know what I mean? Just leave. If you don't need it, leave. But you need it. So what you can do is you can take small wins and take pleasure in those small wins. So find one thing about the job, one tiny thing about the job that you like, and do it really well. Take really, really good pleasure in that. Be the best at it. Have discipline around that, and then find something else that you like slightly, and then try to be really good at that. And those small wins, even if it is that you just have the tidiest desk at work or you're always on time, it's something to grab onto that's not nothing, because the alternative is existential dread. And the problem with existential dread is it's bloody real, because we are born and we die and we have a finite amount of time. But we're not always, even though I say control what you can control, we're not always in control of what we can do with our time to its fullest, because of the environment, housing, food, gas, everything I've said. So therefore, it is about working with what you can control, maximizing it, owning it, and then doing those small things to the best you can, and allowing that in itself to be a reward. Does that make sense, Daniel?
It does make sense. And I think I'm going to add to that in going to that example of work that you don't like. You have to stay there for a while, right? Because we cannot live in life going through something that we don't like. And if I were going to do a job for 30 years, I'm going to dislike the job. And think you had a great thing to say about saying find that one thing, that positive thing, because you need, for example, you need the money, right? But you don't have to actually stay there longer. You can find something that brings you more enjoyment, because what brought you enjoyment back then is not going to bring you enjoyment tomorrow. Everything changes. And we have to be aware that even though, like you said, we have control some things, those things we can control, right, are also going to be impacted by those external factors that we have no control in. Because in the economy, we have no control in. We can do small steps to put us ahead of others, but we are still going to be behind.
Mhm.
And when you see in social media, and I think this is a problem with social media, you see people having Lamborghinis or a pretty nice SUV that makes you to want those things. But listen to me when I say want, because you don't actually need those things, right? If you have a 2000, I don't know, 7 Honda, right, and it still works, that decision is on you, because that car, you don't have any payment on it, right? That car is working out well for you. But if you decide to change it, you're putting, like, you're hanging yourself, because you're doing something that wasn't, let's say, supposed to be there. If I'm saying, expressing myself correctly. So let's try to be our own selves and not try to be someone that we are not, just to show it to other people. I don't know
Yeah.
if you have anything to mention there.
No. I mean, that's a really, really succinct way, a really tidy way of the message. That, again, if it, with the car on payment, when you had a perfectly serviceable car, who or what are you trying to achieve with that? Now, there is nothing wrong with owning a 1969 Mustang if you can afford it.
Wow.
There's nothing wrong with it, and it is a thing of beauty to be admired. But if you put yourself into $100,000 debt to get it, you've got to ask yourself, who are you trying to please? Because, as I said earlier, money represents stored time, whether we like it or not. For working people, I'm not talking about people that are multimillionaires that can generate revenue through interest and blah blah blah. But for working people, money represents stored time. So, do you value time, and time is all we have, or do you value driving this car so other people might look or might not? And let me tell you this as well, which is interesting, is that actually most people don't notice. Most people don't care. The social media thing, again, it is designed this, you might not know this, but the same people that designed, what do you call them in America? You know those, we call them pluggies here, but or slot machines. You know where you press the button and they spin and they get, the casinos have them and they give money, like slot machines. Do you call them slot machines?
Oh
Gambling
yeah, yeah, yeah.
machines?
Slot
Yeah,
machines, slot
slot
machines.
machine. Yeah. So slot machines. The same people who use slot machines design social media. They use the same addictive tactics, and what it is they give out just enough reward that the brain keeps getting more and more and more. So it uses the dopaminergic system, dopamine, and it keeps triggering small amounts. And so those type of things, they keep you hooked. Now on so that's the method that keeps you scrolling, the doom scroll. But the feed, they call it the feed, and the feed is actually a really interesting word because people think they know what feed is, but the feed is because it's feeding you. It's feeding you. You're not eating it. It is feeding you what it thinks you want based on your algorithm. And you're consuming. You are consuming. Now, in terms of the other thing about like the social media and like life portrayed and life and Lamborghinis and all that. Now, there is nothing wrong with people who want to live that life, but I think that what you don't realize is that living that life has a price as well, and you might find, even if you got there, that the price you paid might not be worth it, because, as I said earlier, your attention is the most valuable thing in this universe, because I would argue that your attention even manifests reality itself. Now, what that means is, and let me ask this to you, Daniel, who is the richest man? The man with the Lamborghini, the big house on the hill, and the most beautiful women, but he's been divorced 7 times and he's you know separated from his
Doesn't have
children.
love.
Or the father who's there every day for their kids, and they love him and they value him.
I discussed this with my friends the other day, and I'm going to ask you the same question. You have 3 choices. You're going to rank them from first to last: money, love, health. What
Um,
would you give it?
yeah, so I'd go health first, absolutely. Without health, there is only suffering, and then there's death. Love, because without love it is meaningless, and I mean it, not even just love for your wife or your partner, I mean love for your fellow human, genuine warmth, because if we could just reframe it into that, then it was enough. Now, where money is, even, but to dismiss money completely is also a fool's errand because of the way we're set up. Now, let's assume that I have enough money that I can eat, I can drink, and I can have shelter. That, any more than that, is abundance. But health, once it's gone, it's gone. And love, without love, then what's the point?
Yeah, I think with that answer, it answers your question. So the father that is there every day, their kids love them. Those are the people that have the rewards, because as parents, you're a parent yourself, but I'm not, right? But the belief is that their parents should be happy with their kids. And if they are not, because their kid hate them, or they don't have a love for someone who is by their side and they are alone, that's why I say to people, you might see that they have a Lamborghini, they have a plane, but you don't know what they're going through. And my thing is like, I have no grudges against a millionaire, because a millionaire has to give up many things to become a millionaire. To become a millionaire, you have to give up so many things. Like the people that make it, they gave up many things to make it. But what are you willing to give up to get there? Are you willing to lose time with your kids? Are you willing to lose time with your friends to make it, to have that Lamborghini, to have that plane? That's the question you need to ask yourself. And that goes back to your personality and what you want to do and what you can control. Because if you want that Lamborghini and you are willing to give up love, go ahead. But it's just a matter of what are you willing to give up, what I'm willing to give up. And that's the question that we need to ask ourselves. What are we willing to give up?
Daniel, one thing as well. This is just an interesting topic of conversation. Do you ever watch Joe Rogan at all, or no?
Yes, I do. I don't watch him current so many times, but I've done.
But you're aware of him, the podcaster, like that.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
yeah. So one thing that I've watched him now and again, but one thing I've heard him say before is like he often says if he didn't make it when he was young, that he don't think he would have ever made it because he needed that time, when he was young to dedicate to basically to dedicate to his craft, which is comedy, and he likes pool and a few other things. But then he had children a bit later on after he made it. He says he doesn't know how he could have done it when he's older. And it bothers me a lot because let's say you have kids when you're 19, 20, 21, 22. By the time your kids are adults, you're in your early 40s. And you've heard that old saying, life begins at 40. It's actually a he's got his lived experience. Even one of the most famous men in the world has got his lived experience, his belief, but it doesn't make it right. And so what I'm trying to say is that in having those children young, you get to grow with them. But then when you're 40, you get to live a life that is a life of what you want. And if you're lucky, you'll have grandkids and you can dedicate a life to them. But you can also do other things. You can travel, you can start a business, whatever you want. And this comes back to what you were saying earlier about the Lamborghini, about the big house, about the sacrifice. Now you mentioned like the price you're willing to pay. But the other thing that I will warn people is if you dedicate time to your family, you dedicate time to sacrifice, you take pleasure in the sacrifice, in the pain, because you are growing through that. And even in itself, it doesn't have to be with family, even in itself, you can see yourself growing, you can see yourself benefiting. You will 100% feel better. You will have more agency, you will have more control. If you work 18 hours a day for 10 years, there's still a strong chance you'll never become a millionaire. But if you focus on, but what I will say you will feel is if you work every day towards loving yourself and your family, you will do that. That will become your normal. And that is achievable for most people.
I think you're 100% right. And I think that's a great way to end the podcast. So before we go, Arky, can you please let the audience know where they can find your books, when they can find yourself in the media world?
Thanks so much thanks for that, mate. So personality peak, peek.com. Check into that. You'll be able to find, basically get free results. The free results will give you enough that you can see a mirror. You should be able to see the traits. I've had wonderful feedback on that. All the social medias are on there. I'm published under Ralph K. Jones, Arky Jones on Amazon. Don't give two shits. Applied Stoicism, Sydney Effect, and around 30, 40 other short books. I'd appreciate that. But my primary focus for the last 8 years has been making personality accessible to all in a fun way, not to pathologize, and to give you a snapshot into a mirror at that moment. And hopefully from there, we put you on a map and then you can choose your direction. The site does offer direction. It offers direction, but also sometimes just knowing is enough to make the next steps to live the life that when I say you deserve the actions of your consequences. And if you put in effort into areas of growth, almost certainly you will win in the long run. But if you pursue short-term gain and short-term growth, short-term pleasure, then this is also fine. But just know eventually the piper we'll play the tune and call the debt.
Wow. I think I'm gonna no. I think no. I'm gonna leave the whole thing down in the description, and I'm gonna thank everybody for being here. Thank you, Arky, again for coming here and sharing your knowledge. And for those that are listening in, I'm also had a community that's called Born in the Storm. It's a free community that you can join in, where we're gonna talk each other and help each other grow out of our difficulties and turn them into light. That's why the podcast is called Out of the Gray. And so I'm going to leave that link also down in the description. Thank you again for listening in. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share with the people that you love so that we can keep sharing this message across the world. May God bless you all. Take care.